Welcome to The Healing Equation. I'm Grace, the founder of Agora Health.
And my name is Jasmine, founder of Body in the City.
In this series, we explore women's health, well-being and healing in the modern world, speaking to experts, innovators and advocates in the space to help you along your wellness journey.
So take a seat, get comfy and join us for another empowering episode. Hello and welcome. Our guest today is a powerhouse voice in the mental health space, a qualified psychotherapist, speaker, and author of Real Talk, whose work has touched thousands of lives. She's built an online community of over 100,000 followers where she breaks down complex emotional topics into accessible, relatable conversations. Her words have been featured in national publications, her book has inspired readers to prioritize their well-being, and her workshops and talks have helped countless people find the language for their feelings. She's passionate about dismantling stigma, making therapy more accessible, and helping people feel truly seen in their mental health journey. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome Tasha Bailey. Hi.
Hi, that was so
Tasha.
lovely.
We're so
That's
excited to have you here. We have listened to your book,
We have.
and we were bickering about different points, which
We
we'll
were.
get to after.
We're always bickering.
So I think let's dive straight in. I feel like over the last couple of years, self-love, self-care is something that gets thrown around a lot on social media. But I particularly liked the way you spoke about it in your book. And it was less from the external aspect of just taking time for yourself, but really tuning in with what you want in your life. So can you maybe share with us a little bit about your self-love journey and how that became such an important part for you in writing your book, Real Talk?
Oh, that's such a good question. Because I'm thinking about my self-love journey from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And the first thing that comes to mind is when I was like maybe 7, 8, 9, I used to write songs.
Okay.
And they were kind of love songs. But they weren't necessarily to a person, but something about how I wanted to be loved or how I wanted to feel love, but for myself.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where my self-love seed got kind of sown. And, you know, I think since then, there's something about like, I think that the relationship we have with ourselves is the longest relationship we'll ever have in our lives.
Yeah.
And we're in a world which is often about serving everybody else, fulfilling different expectations. And then the last personal thing that we put on our list is ourselves.
Yeah.
At our own detriment. And that's then when mental health goes the other way, and you know we have anxiety and all this stuff because we have prioritize our needs and what we need to fulfill life. So yeah, for my self-love journey, it has been very kind of, I don't know what the word is. I was going to say up and down, but it's not up and down. It's more there is no end result. It's always going to be expanding and developing, and how I love myself now will be different to how I love myself tomorrow and in 20 years and in 50 years because I'm changing. So how I love myself has to change with that as well.
I love that.
It's incredible. So let's just go a little bit back. I think we need like a lesson, a 101, me in particular, just on what is, say, psychotherapy versus, say, psychology versus, say, something like cognitive behavioral therapy. What is the difference between the three?
Okay. So psychotherapy is the having space with a mental health professional who's a psychotherapist. And usually you're looking back at your past, but also connecting it to who you are now and what are the things that are coming up that you're struggling with. And also using that to then feed into your future. Who are you becoming? How do you make space for that person? What do you need to do to resource yourself? But most psychotherapies look at how your past informs who you are now.
Okay.
And like building your confidence and rewriting the old narratives that are no longer serving you. A psychologist might do bits of that, but a lot of the time they might be more focusing on a particular thing you're struggling with, maybe like a symptom, and that might be a slightly more solution focused or even like medical focused. And then the third one was cognitive.
Yes.
So cognitive therapy or CBT is very solution focused.
Okay.
So it might be that you're having panic attacks So CBT therapists will help you understand what the panic attack is and how to cope with it. But what they won't do is look back to see where it's coming from, how did it start, what is the narrative and the history and the past trauma that might be causing this. So yeah, it's something about like each one is different in terms of how much they dig into the past or not. And some psychotherapists can do all three.
Okay.
So they have the skill set for free.
Like, can there be a therapist that does all three? And how does somebody know which one to pick? Is it just based on the solution or what they want the outcome to be? Like, how would they know what to pick?
Yeah, I think it's about how ready you are for therapy. So some people, maybe they're struggling so much or the idea of looking back feels too scary or life is already too busy and they just don't have the space for it. So something like CBT can be really great for helping you manage the difficult bits with some tools and some skills and to have a bit of a backpack of resources.
Yeah.
But at some point, you're going to feel like, yes, okay, I've dealt with the panic attacks, for example, but actually there's a story here that I'm carrying that is also impacting not just how the panic attack started, but also my confidence in my relationships and how I feel about myself.
Yeah.
So actually I need to dig a bit deeper.
Yeah.
And that's when it's a good idea to go into psychotherapy. But I never believe it's a good idea to force yourself into psychotherapy.
Yeah, because I've heard some people say that they've gone to therapy and some had like amazing experiences and some have like almost gone back into the past and like brought up feelings that they were hiding or they were repressing and now are reliving those feelings all over again.
Yeah.
So they either stop doing it because they're so triggered by what's being mentioned, what's coming up, or they're great and they sail through it, but it's just like, it's difficult, isn't it, to navigate? It's like you got to prepare yourself and be mentally ready to go back through that journey.
Yeah. And this is why like the right therapist for you is important as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Because yes, they are the expert or the professional, but you set the pace of your therapy.
Okay.
I always say to clients, like, you're the driver, I'm the passenger on the side. I might say, like, can we go down that way? Can we go down this way? And you will let me know whether that feels okay or not.
Okay.
We want to go at your pace. I don't want to, it's not about making the person feel completely unsafe. Therapy has to be a safe place. And when you feel safe enough, then you can start to dip into the more difficult, dredgy, shadowy bits.
Yeah.
But we're not going to do all of that in session one.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can key a little bit more into session one, build our relationship, make sure you feel comfortable, make sure you like we're building, I've got to work my trust for you.
Yeah.
You know, I don't just deserve to hear everything. Like let yourself, you know, grow that trust and that relationship with your therapist first. And maybe you might even be like, actually, I don't think this person's the right person for me.
And that's fair enough.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Date around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think now finally we're kind of becoming more comfortable with the thought of going to therapy. It's nice as well that you see a lot more young people going to therapy. I feel like back in the day, I'm only 30 years old, but back in the day, you didn't hear, like, I didn't have as many friends that would go to therapy. Their parents certainly wouldn't be going to therapy, whereas now it's a lot more normalized. But one of the things that really struck me about your book, and it was something actually in the intro, which was about our relationship with ourselves, which I think is really important. And that introspection that I feel like nobody really teaches us. Like, we're not taught to think about what we want ever, really. Like, you know, your favorite color, you know, the food you like, you know, the music you like to listen to, but do you really know, like, your heart's desire, where you want to be, your purpose, what you'd like to achieve? And often we get led by family or we get led by society. And by society, I mean, like, you think you might want to be a singer, you think you might want to be an actress. But one of the things that I found really interesting was how much you really focus in the book to really repeat to us to take a second to think, what do we want and how to tune in with ourselves? So I guess, can you tell us a bit more about that introspection and how important that is for our mental well-being? Yeah,
I guess it's kind of like what you said. We're often told what we should do and be and feel. And in terms of introspection, I think particularly with feelings, one of the biggest struggles that people have when they start therapy is I'll ask them, oh, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
And they'll say, yeah, I feel good. Yeah, I feel fine. Yeah, I'm okay. They're not feelings.
Yeah.
They're just states, they're words.
Yeah.
And then when I ask, okay, what's the actual feeling, that's when people get stuck because we haven't been given that education.
Yeah.
We're taught, again, all these expectations, but not taught, okay, how do I check in with myself emotionally and what I'm feeling? And I think that tends to happen a lot because of previous generations, and they were taught how to know what they're feeling or to even talk about their feelings, and then they end up invalidating themselves. And the next generation, it kind of passes on.
Yeah.
So yeah, introspection is about really tuning into, pausing firstly, because we don't really pause
true.
much.
Yeah.
Pausing and then thinking, okay, where am I in this very moment? What am I feeling? What is my body feeling? What is it teaching me about where I am? What's coming up? We're never completely emotionless. We are beautiful as humans. We are always feeling. It's the best thing about us is that we can feel so many different things at the same time. So it's almost pausing, checking in, what is that right now? And what does that tell me about what I need in this moment? And I think just starting there, maybe even once a day, is a really great way to kind of build your introspection.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love that. I need to do that.
Your book as well, you mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, you spoke about feelings and personalities, and you spoke about like people having this persona and this personality, like, oh, this is the sad one, and this is the happy one. And you mentioned how like not to get labelled by a particular feeling because a feeling doesn't like associate necessarily to your personality, and that more than one feeling can kind of coexist. That took me a long time to like digest. I was like, it's so true, because in any given day I can go through like a array of different feelings, right? And I used to like feel guilty about that, about having highs, having lows, but like that was just what life was about sometimes and how you dealt with it. I think to say the younger people who are navigating the same sort of stress, like not quite sure or have been labelled as being one type of way, having one type of personality, how would you help them to almost like process it and kind of sit with those feelings so they don't feel so burdensome just being classed as, she's the angry sister, she's the happy sister, like you don't want to be labelled like that.
And I think also like as Black women, we automatically, you're strong and you're resilient and you kind of just grow up thinking that's how it is. Like you're just labelled like that from the beginning. So to your point, it's even harder, I think, to explore how you're really feeling because you're always having to put on a brave face because that's just what you've been told that you need to be as a Black woman, or you're angry. We're either strong or angry. That's what we usually get. Or both.
Yeah. So it's the labels. Like it's
the labels.
People, society labels us because that's how they want to box us and, invalidate us. And then also maybe our family members or people around us will label us because a lot of the time it might be projection. So they might say, oh, you're the angry one, because they don't want to deal with their own anger or their own emotion. So there's a lot of that. So if someone was going through that, I would, obviously remind them that is, you're not your emotion. You're not one emotion. You carry a million emotions, and you're so expansive that one emotion does not define all of you as a person. You might be in a particular season where you're feeling sad or angry or anxious, but that's not the whole of your life and the whole of who you are. And I think the sooner that you realize how beautifully complex you are, that you won't just be this one feeling, the sooner you'll be able to kind of accept that, you are more than just that feeling. And I think it works both ways. I think I say in my book somewhere about kind of people will say things like, I'm not an angry person. And what it does is it stops you from feeling anger because you think that anger is a bad thing, or if you are an angry person, that means you're a bad person. Anger is one of my favorite emotions, actually, because it allows you to set boundaries. You wouldn't set a boundary unless someone made you feel angry, or not made you feel angry, but unless something happened that made you feel violated or angry or overstepped. That's when you're like, hey, something happened here. I don't like this. I need to put a boundary in. It allows you to advocate for yourself. It's just when anger is used in a non-healthy way that it is then, what's the word I'm thinking of? Can be toxic or can be, unhelpful. But if you can use it to your power by really listening to yourself, listening to what is the need underneath that anger, that's when anger can be really powerful and healing, actually.
Yeah. It's like fear, isn't it? It's like we shouldn't necessarily fear because it's like the thing that stops us from jumping over a bridge or putting our hand in hot fire.
Yeah.
We need that fight or flight mechanism. We need that inside of us. So I embrace the feelings. I embrace the fear.
I don't think I'm big on embracing feelings. No, I don't think so. It's funny because my mum is very emotional and she really embraces her feelings. But I don't know what it is. I think I'm one of those people, perhaps because lifestyle, again, like you're so busy that it's not that I don't acknowledge it, but I don't give myself time to really sit with it, if that makes sense. And I think probably a lot of people might have this where like you have a day or like a bad day at the office or something happens in your family and you're sad and you're angry, but then there's something else and you don't give yourself enough time to really process what happened because you're already on to the next thing, which I know isn't healthy because then everything accumulates and then before you know it, after 5 years, you've got like a lot of repressed anger maybe towards your boss or your sister or whatever it might be. But it's hard. I think it's really hard to sit with your feelings. It takes a lot and it can be scary, I think, for some people, really scary.
But I also think that there's maybe a perception of what sitting with your feelings looks like and that there's only one way to do it because some people are more open to like crying, for example, but that's only one way to express your feelings. There are many other ways. You know, some people do. When I started my career, I was mostly working with children and young people. So a lot of it was like creative work. So like arts and playing pirates, and that's actually how their feelings will come out, not really saying about what they were going through, but by acting it out through stories. So there's different ways that you can embrace your emotion and release your emotion. It doesn't have to be the thing of like, let me just sit down and cry in bed. That's one version and that's an okay version, but that's not the only one. And it kind of reminds me about like the nervous system and somatic healing, because when we are stressed or angry or have gone through a lot emotionally, we need to find some way to release it. And that might be through literally physical tears, yawning, sweating, tapping, like all these things are ways of getting rid of the cortisol that's built up in our body over a stressful period. So having things like that, my new thing is somatic exercises. So it's kind of like a lot of rocking and tilting and repetitive movement that literally your body will be like, it'll kind of like slow down and feel really sleepy. You'll be like yawning and that's your body getting rid of the stress from the day. So there's different ways of allowing your emotions to be released.
And how does somebody know when they've got pent-up emotion and they need to sit with it and let it release? Like what's some of the key signs that perhaps you need to exhale?
I think back to the nervous system, there's like a few things. So you might be in fight mode. So that means you're easily irritable, really frustrated. You just want to like fight or like, you're just very easily wound up. And even your body might feel hot and tense. And that is one way that your body is overwhelmed with stress and overwhelmed with emotion that needs to be going somewhere. The next one is flight. So you might find yourself very distracted or trying to distract yourself, overworking, like doing anything but sitting with your emotions, basically. I'm going to do the washing, I'm going to clean the house at 3:00 in the morning, all those things, or even just not sleeping. That's a really big sign. If your sleeping is impacted, it's usually something that you're holding, that your conscious is like, we need to think about this now. But you're like, no, I need to sleep. Or you might go into shutdown, so freeze response. So you might find yourself feeling quite numb, quite dissociated, tired, just constantly sleeping. Like these are the ways that your body will shut down because your emotions are feeling like they're too much.
Okay. It's interesting. So
how many? Because I ticked a lot of those boxes.
She's like, that's me, that's me.
That's literally me. Okay, right.
I'm going to take you to like those panic rooms or the smash rooms.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that would be a dream. I'd love that. I'd love that. Or even the axes.
Oh, yeah.
Love to try axe throwing. Yeah, I would love that.
Do that.
One of the things that I think is fantastic is seeing, like, I think for me, sometimes you think of therapy, you think more of a older person somebody like in a suit sat in a room, and you see like those not videos, but in films, like when people are laying down, and it's all quite serious and formal. And I think that's kind of the main vision that we have of therapy. But obviously, like, you are a therapist and you look like me, which is very refreshing. You're young, you're Black. And I think having also people that are relatable to us, in terms of when you were saying finding a right therapist for you, is really important. But I guess, how can our culture and also our ethnicity, for example, play a role in how we seek therapy, if we seek therapy? Or I know in a lot of cultures it's very stigmatized still, and it's almost seen as a weakness if you go to a therapist, which can be really off-putting to people. So is that something you see often with like clients? And how can we kind of, I guess, like, if our families or our culture do see therapy in that way, how can we have a conversation around that to make it more comfortable if we feel like that's something we really need to access?
Yeah, I definitely do see that. And I think I find that a lot of people maybe keep therapy to themselves for a little bit until they feel like they can tell their family, the people around them, you know, if they thought there's going to be some judgment. I would say that the attitudes around therapy have changed a lot. And people who are, you know, even in cultures where maybe there is stigma, I find a lot of people who are cycle breakers, who are, yes, the families agree with therapy, but I don't care, I'm trying therapy. I'm seeing a lot of that attitude of like,
Nice, yeah,
you guys have that limited view and that's not working for you, but it's not going to be me. I'm seeing a lot of that. But it can be really difficult. It can be, you know, really hard, because then you're having to hide that you have a vulnerable part, and we all have a vulnerable part, and that part deserves to have validation and healing and support. And sadly, in some cultures, vulnerability is not valued. It's not upheld. It's not treated with the respect that it deserves to have. But yeah, interesting, as a therapist, I do find that I have a real mix of clients, but particularly there's like some kind of marginalized identity, whether it's women of color or disability or neurodiversity. There's something that tends to draw them to me, and maybe it's because I have my own diversity that you can see.
Yes.
And maybe it's something of like feeling like this is a place that I will feel safe and heard.
Yeah, no, I think I can relate to that a lot. I think when I first started going to therapy, like, no one else in my immediate family were going to therapy. Not even any of my friends really spoke about it openly. This is like back then, right? And I remember like mentioning it to my mum. She's like, "Oh, where are you off to?" I was like, "I'm going to therapy," and I'd been for a little while. And her very immediate knee-jerk reaction was, "Oh." It was like rolled up nose. She was like, "Oh, why doing that then?"
Yeah.
And it was like curious. She was very curious, but also very judgmental at the same time. And immediately that made me like shut down and not tell her anything more. And I didn't say anything more about it. I just went about my day, and that's what I did every Tuesday. And it was like weeks later when she noticed that I upheld it, I was still going. Then she became curious, and she sat down with me and she said, look, basically, like, in her era and her generation, she remembers having like postpartum depression and having kids, and feared telling like a midwife or someone that she felt low for the fear of having her baby taken away. Because she said that in that era, that's kind of how you were looked at. Like, if you weren't mentally sound, you could be like unsafe towards your child, basically. So she'd always grown up having this like stigma against having therapy, and just thought that would cycle down to me. And I've obviously like come in and I've broken that cycle now. And now she's like way more open to it. She refuses to have it. She needs it more than you. Sorry, mum, but you do. But at least she's like open to the idea of it, and she can see that at least I'm now breaking that cycle. And whether I take something good or bad from it, I'm not nervous to do it. I don't feel guilty about doing it for myself. It's something that hopefully I can now teach my children. If you need to go and seek unbiased support, or you want to speak to somebody and unravel your feelings, I'm going to support you to do therapy, you know? So it is very important just to have, I think, a circle whereby it's like judgment-free, if possible. Yeah. Because luckily I'm quite strong-willed, but if I was quite weak, her initial reaction may have made me just stop going altogether. Yeah. You know? So I think it's very important how people treat other people when they say they want to do therapy.
Yeah, I think that fear of, especially for the older generation, there's a fear of therapy because they don't understand it or they can't picture it. And actually you said about like when you grow up, like therapy was not really a thing. I remember therapy being like very American and not like a UK thing, or if it was,
Well,
it's
I feel
because
like especially like in Britain, like people like talking isn't a thing really. Like if you think about British culture, you know, we're all very like stiff upper lip. You don't really say how you feel. So therapy for us was like a very Americanized movie situation.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like things are shifting. But what I love about that example though is that you're going to therapy in that moment, and yes, your mum's not at the therapy stage.
Not yet.
But the fact that you went to therapy allowed her to question herself and have that conversation with you. So therapy is almost like a stone in the pond because it impacts everybody else around you, even if it's indirectly.
Yeah, so much good came from it. Yeah. But I do believe in having, like you said, date around. That's a really cool concept because I think I've had maybe, not many, I had a CBT and I've had a psychotherapist. And everyone was, oh, you've got to date around because, you know, you might not match a few. You kind of got to see it as like, you literally go on a date. And I ended up with a lady and she was very pleasant and she was very nice. And we had a few sessions together. But after maybe about 6 or 8 sessions, we just had nothing in common. And I know you wouldn't think you needed to have a commonality with your therapist, but she didn't view life through the lens of a black woman, like at all. She's a like older white lady, long white hair, lovely, but couldn't relate to any of my day-to-day struggles. Like couldn't even like help me to navigate those struggles because it's just completely oblivious to her. And that's when I stopped seeing her, not because she was bad, but I realised in that moment, I was like, oh, you're good, but you also have no idea what I'm going through on a day-to-day. And I might tell you these things. And it almost felt like I didn't want to share too much because I was like, she's not going to get this or she might judge me. So, yeah, that was really interesting, like having to bounce around and find one that really did fit me. And I still haven't found one that really fits me like a glove. But I've had enough for now. Break.
And I think like not every therapist is for you, but also not every therapist is for you at that particular time in your life. So maybe there's like a younger version of you that would have actually, that might have been okay with that therapist. But at that point, you needed more. You needed someone that can understand your lived experience in that way. Because I've had it where I've had a therapist that was amazing for me, but would I work with her again now? I don't think it would be. I'm a different person now. I'm in a different stage of my life. So as much as I loved her as a therapist, that was for that moment, that chapter, but not for this. So yeah, people can be the right people at different times in your life as well.
And I think, like, I would say nowadays, most of us want quick fixes. When something doesn't feel right or isn't right or you're unhappy, you want a quick fix. And one of the things that I found really interesting about your book was this constant idea that you were basically saying, we're never going to be fully healed. You're never going to reach a point where Grace, Tasha, Jasmine is perfect. It's this constant journey through life. And I guess really getting comfortable with that and knowing that you every day are going to potentially discover new things about yourself, or as you said before, something that was maybe right for you one day is no longer serving you the next day. And it took me a while to kind of really understand what you meant, because I feel like we often have, especially as we grow older, this idea that you're going to be an adult and then it's almost like that's it, you're fully formed and that's going to be who you are for the rest of your days and you're kind of going to be at the peak. And actually what you're saying is, no, you're in it for the long haul. Like this is a constant journey that you're going to be on. So can you share with us a little bit more about this sense of healing is just this continuous until our last day journey that we are going to be on?
Yeah, it's like the most annoying thing, honestly. And I think that's how I started my book, of like being with my therapist at the time and being like, yeah, I just can't wait for all this healing stuff to be over. I'm going to live my best life. And she was like, Tasha, it's not it's forever. I'm like, what do you mean? And yeah, we are constantly changing. So the person I'm healing today is different to the person I'll be healing tomorrow. And I like to describe it as a spiral staircase, that you're going up this staircase and you might go to the same points, the same triggers, the same stories that you've had to go through, but from a higher level each time. So yes, you are moving upward and higher, but there are still going to be these things that you're having to heal on a different level. It's almost like we are all iPhones. iPhone is never going to have an ultimate iPhone. There's always going to be an iPhone 16, 17, 54. Like, it's going to continue and continue. And we are like that as well.
Yeah.
We're constantly evolving.
Yeah. That can be quite tricky to wrap your head around, though, because I guess it's quite daunting and a little bit scary as well, because you have to constantly have a level of self-reflection to be able to be aware that this is a journey that you are constantly on. And I think often people check out. So actually, I guess my next question is, like, with therapy, most people tend to go to therapy when they really, really need it. But how much can therapy also be useful as, like, you don't necessarily need to go every week, but maybe checking in with a therapist once a month, once every couple of months in the background, to just always have that level of grounding of this is where I'm at, or these may be little things that at the moment I'm struggling with that could potentially become bigger triggers, but I want to kind of focus on them now. So I guess what I'm asking is it good for you to almost be in, not a continual therapy, but kind of always touch base with somebody that can give you that different perspective instead of waiting until you're maybe in a really dark place or really triggered and then thinking, oh my gosh, like, I need all the help now.
Yeah. It's like therapy should be for maintenance and prevention rather than like emergency, I need help right now.
Yeah.
And I tend to have clients who I've worked with and they will dip in and dip out. So maybe they can feel like they're getting stressed. I need to speak to Tasha. I need to, let's go back to like a bit of a rotation just so I can have that holding space. So I do think where you have and also what's great with that, is that we've already built a relationship. So then when they are in emergency mode, I know them. I know their story. We have an open door policy. So whenever you need to come back, let me know. Whereas if you're in emergency mode, the last thing you want to do is get to know a new therapist.
That's true.
It's really hard. It's hard work to trust someone, especially when you are already feeling stressed and run down. So the fact that you've already done that groundwork beforehand could be a really good save for you.
That's good to know. Someone like you, Tasha, sorry, I called you Grace, but you're definitely Tasha. You see people on a day-to-day, right? And I've heard the phrase emotional dumping. How do you prevent that feeling of like taking home somebody else's stuff? You know, what do you do to either clear that energy or to kind of separate yourself from that person? I know therapists are trained to be like non-personal and to be biased, but how do you personally like make sure that there's separation between your own mental health and somebody else's?
So I would say it's not emotional dumping for me because I'm the therapist, so I'm there for us to go through it all. And I also would say that as a therapist, I am personable, so we are gonna like laugh and joke, and sometimes what you feel is going to impact me. And that is one of my tools. Sometimes clients will talk about something like maybe quite traumatic or quite difficult, but they say it in a really flat tone, so there's no emotion. But I will feel the emotion for them. And then I feed that back to them. I'm feeling this as you're saying this. I'm feeling like I could cry right now. I feel really sad. Where is that for you? And that can sometimes help them to reconnect with it. Because sometimes we have been so cut off from our emotion, we don't even know where it is.
Disassociate from that feeling altogether.
Yeah.
Wow.
But then in terms of like how I look after myself, I don't believe that being a full-time therapist is for me. I can't be a therapist Monday to Friday. It's just not, it's not my thing. I love having a handful of clients who I can give my energy to and not feel like I am overwhelmed or at capacity. I like that there's space. I like that I do other things, my content creation, writing, like these things mean that my client work is even more important because I'm not overwhelmed in it. I'm really enjoying it. So that's one thing. And so when I do have my client days, I don't have too many clients, and I have my breaks and my gaps and my little self-care things that I do. And then I have an amazing supervisor. So every therapist should have a clinical supervisor who is another therapist. It's like mother, grandmother. It's like your grand therapist.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're slightly more experienced and have lots more training, and she is who I go to about my sessions.
Okay.
So I can talk about how I felt in the session, or when I felt a little bit stuck with my clients, and what can I do to support them a bit more. So she holds me accountable, but also holds space for me. And she really is my cheerleader as well. Like, she's awesome. I love her so much. So she is also part of my team. And then I have other things that I do. So I'm really into reformer Pilates because it's a way of my body releasing and connecting, and gets my mind and my body together, because my job is very sedentary at a desk, well, not a desk, at a laptop most of the time, but my clients are online. So I need things that bring me back into my body and help me to release maybe what I've been carrying that isn't mine or is mine at the same time. So yeah, lots of that kind of somatic and body stuff really helps me.
Sounds like you've got very healthy boundaries, Tasha.
Yeah.
See, I'm a crier, and I would struggle, because when you say that makes me feel like I want to cry, are you not allowed to cry as a therapist? Because like, I have this even with friends sometimes where they'll tell me something sad, and you don't want to cry because they're already sad, but I'm such a crier and I can't hold it in. So I couldn't imagine hearing something like really sad and traumatic, because I would want to burst into tears.
Yeah, I think there definitely have been the rare session where I have actually cried.
Okay.
But it's more the feeling of you can feel the tears bring up, and I find that it's not necessarily, for me personally, it's not necessarily the trauma that makes me feel that. It's more that this is the moment when you can be heard. And you've carried this for so long, so silently, and now it's here, and you felt safe enough to bring it. And it's kind of the overwhelm of that, that is where the vulnerability kind of comes in. But it's a shared moment.
Yeah.
So it means that they're not just on their own feeling that, we're feeling it together, and it can be quite helpful in that sense. But yeah, in terms of like actually crying, there's been like maybe one or two moments.
Yeah.
And that can be interesting, because it's not that it's not ethical. It's just not very common.
Yes. Yeah.
You see therapists as being quite blank slate.
Yes. Yeah.
But in those moments, it actually allowed the client to then cry.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
So a tear came from me, and then their tear dropped as well. So it's
they
kind of
realised the
permission given.
importance of that feeling.
Yeah.
Well, they'd have a lot of permission if I was their therapist.
She just cried through the whole thing.
Yeah, I probably would.
And how do you... Okay, so I know you spoke about like one-to-one sessions. What are your thoughts around like couples or like joint therapy sessions? Because obviously it's a thing. People have marriage counselling, premarital counselling, couples counselling, whatever. What are your thoughts around them? And how do... I'm not sure if you give like couples therapy, but how do they then disassociate, keep neutral, stay present in the moment, and attend to each person's needs and listen to each person without being judgmental?
So I don't do couples work, but I'm so fascinated by it. I watch couples therapy on BBC with Ola.
Yes.
And
it's amazing.
So fascinating.
You should watch that.
I do. I didn't even know
So
this
You
was
should
a
watch
thing.
that. Is it BBC iPlayer?
But yeah, so it's like
Oh
real
my
life,
God, yeah.
not characters, real life couples in New York, and she's doing sessions, and there's like a polyamorous couple, there's, well, not a couple, a polyamorous relationship with like three people. It's really amazing. And then she goes to supervision, so you see the whole process, and then it's really, really cool. But I found it really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that I would like to do one day, but maybe a little part of me is a bit scared of
You
just
can start
like
with us. Friends therapy.
Let's start today.
I want to kill my co-host.
But I think it can be really helpful. And my understanding is that you're not having therapy with the two individuals. You're having therapy with the relationship in between them.
Okay, yeah.
And that's where the work is. So I find it really, really interesting. You can have it with couples, it could be with sisters, it could be with colleagues. Like it doesn't matter. It's a relationship, and it needs some support and healing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it can be really, really powerful.
That's interesting. I've not been. I would like to go to one time. We'll go to one.
With me.
Well, not with you. We don't need therapy. Do we need therapy?
We might do by the end of this series.
I just find the whole concept really interesting, and I always wonder like what it took to get the men in the room, because I find through experience that men tend to be a little bit harder to get into the room or harder to accept that they might need therapy because they're so like strong-willed and I am man and I can look after myself. And yeah, in fact, going off of that, like, do you see male clients?
So it's really interesting. I have hardly any.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I tend to have let's say 95% women and non-binary people.
Okay.
And I was talking about this the other day. I think part of it is, like you're saying, like the door to therapy for men can be more difficult. But I do find that a lot of the time men are more likely to find male therapists. And maybe that feels like an easier way in. So yeah, I would like it to be more balanced, but sadly it's not there yet.
That's fair enough.
Interesting.
Trying to get more men to therapy.
Good
Do us all a favour. Go to therapy.
I think, mental health is one of the founding pillars of our overall well-being. And I feel like actually, like even with men, like they'll go to the gym, and many women will go to the gym, we'll work out, we'll eat well, we'll do all these other things for our wellness and our well-being. But you always kind of put your mind to the back burner, your emotions. I think we always prioritize, which makes sense, but we prioritize what we can see, the physical. Did I lose weight? Did I put on weight? How am I looking? But we forget about how important our mental well-being is. And I think there's something really nice about how you really gently guide people in the book to, even if you've never been to therapy, even if you're not going to go to therapy, but to ask yourself a couple of key questions that you can just focus on to perhaps be a bit more in touch with yourself. And I think the whole kind of idea as well of being accountable and not necessarily, even though you are a therapist, you're not really in the book, I felt anyways, reading it as a reader. It wasn't like you should come and speak to me because of this, or written from the perspective of these are all these theories that you should be following. But it was really about how you can actually say to an individual, here are the tools, now you go and explore, which I think is really beautiful and nice. And so I would highly recommend, even if, like I said, you haven't been to therapy, aren't thinking about therapy, I think real talk is so important because it makes you think as well, which for me really resonated, but how you think and speak to yourself as a person. I'm very self-critical, and it wasn't until I started thinking from your book, like the thoughts that you have about yourself or how you speak to yourself. Or we often have this thing as well, I don't know about you guys, but like if somebody says like, oh, you look nice or whatever, like I always brush off compliments. I can never take a compliment. And then I was like, actually that means that I'm always basically like putting myself down and being like really negative about myself because I can't take a compliment. But you don't think about all these little things. And then it was just really interesting because when you hear it from another perspective or read it from another perspective, you think, wow, all of that really adds up to how I view myself as my identity and me as a being, which is really important. I don't really know. This isn't a question. This is basically me just sharing a point, really.
It reminds me of, I think in the book I say about kind of, we talk a lot about like finding partners who are emotionally available and, we want emotionally available partners, but are you actually emotionally available to yourself?
Now, you see, this really struck a chord with me because I thought I was. And then having really asked myself, I don't think I am. So to all the men that I told that you guys were the problem, it may have been slightly me. But it's really hard because you don't realise. And I think sometimes you also attract what you are and what's going on in your life. And so you keep attracting emotionally unavailable men or men that you think are difficult or they're not in touch with, their emotions and they're not very like giving. But maybe that's also because that's what you're putting out into the world.
Yeah. And actually, another theory I've got around that as well is sometimes we attract emotionally unavailable people because it makes us feel like we are the more healed ones.
Ooh.
Tash.
There's also that.
I think I've done a bit of that too, actually. Yeah, I think I've done, yeah.
So you're saying that we might attract emotionally unavailable people because we might we may, in our own head, feel as though we're more emotionally available than them.
Yeah.
But we might in turn be just as, or not so much more emotionally available than we think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Or there's a part of us that wants to fix them
Yeah.
or change them, especially if we've had parents that weren't emotionally available and we couldn't change or fix them. We think, okay, well, this guy, girl that I'm seeing is not all that I want, but hopefully, like, you know, I can.
I think women do that a lot.
Yeah.
They find a guy or girl or
potential.
whoever and they go, yeah, like they'll do,
Yeah,
but I can
potential.
just like, you know, in time they'll be great, you
Yeah.
know, and it's like, it's not bread. It's not going to bake well. Like, if he's damaged goods, he's damaged goods.
Oh,
That's
not necessarily. So if someone's like unemotionally available or didn't have emotional availability as a child and they've grown up to be men or women that are now a little bit emotionally constipated, how do we then... Okay, question is, can we change that externally, or does it have to be the individual that like acknowledges that and does the self-work to do it? Like, can somebody come in and be like, I'm going to fix that emotional imbalance you've got? Or do they have to recognise it and be like, do you know what, I've got an emotional imbalance and I'm going to go and fix it?
Yeah, we can't change for them. Only the person has to have the want to change and the openness to change. And that's why you can never force someone to go to therapy. Like, it's one of the reasons why I pause from working with children, because children are great. I love children. I love working with children. But sometimes the child shouldn't be the one in therapy. Sometimes it's the parent. But they'll be like, no, let little Billy go to therapy. They can fix it all. But Billy's like, what is therapy? I never know what this is. Like, I've got nothing to work on.
Yeah.
So you can't force, you know, someone to be ready to go on that journey. They have to be willing to step into it. It's, as we know, it's not the easiest journey. It is confronting and vulnerable, and not everybody is ready to do that.
Some people are never ready though.
Yeah.
That's tricky.
Yeah.
Is there something you'd like to share, Jasmine?
No, I'm just saying that, like, I know people personally,
Yeah.
like in my friendship circles, I know that just don't agree with therapy. And I'm looking at them, but you need it.
Yeah.
And I want to say that, but I'm not going to say that.
Yeah.
But you know how much it would benefit them from my experience.
But I think
What do you do in that case?
I think you just have to leave them to it.
Yeah.
I've had so many, but it's not just with therapy, like even just with friendships where sometimes, I mean, it could be an addiction or it could be something that you can see and you're thinking, okay, you're heading towards a car crash if you keep living that lifestyle or doing a certain thing. But 1,000 people could be saying that to a person, but if you don't want to hear it, you're not going to hear it. And I think sometimes you just need to let people realize, and at some point in their lives they'll hit a phase, whether it might be loss, grief, whatever, a random trigger on a Tuesday afternoon, and then you go, oh, like this is what I've been holding on to and harboring and fostering, or this is what I've been doing. And all you can do is hope that that will come sooner rather than later, I think, sometimes with people. But
So. My nan would say, look, listen, you'll feel. And it's so true. It used to be so hard as a child, but it's so true.
yeah,
You know,
that is true.
Hopefully it kind of inspires some people just to step out there, because there's so many more resources available now than there were like even just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think just on the topic of resource, AI is becoming so much more popular, as we know.
Yeah.
And it found its way inside of the therapy industry. It's an industry.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Like, does
What are
that
your
affect
thoughts?
you? Your thoughts on it?
Yeah.
Do you think it's a positive thing? Is it a good direction to go in? Or is this taking away that humanness of therapy?
Oh, it's a tricky one. I am a big fan of ChatGPT. I'm not gonna lie, I love ChatGPT. But in terms of ChatGPT or AI being a therapist, is no, because a therapist is a whole human being. They know your story, your narrative, your triggers. They know that they can feel their feeling in the room, and they might sense your feeling in the room or on the Zoom room. AI can't do that. And to some extent, to a lot of extent, AI is very limited because they, a lot of the time, will kind of repeat what you're already, they'll kind of affirm what you're saying, but not necessarily challenge you all the time. However, I do think there can be some helpfulness to using AI alongside therapy or alongside other resources, but not to rely on it as your therapist. We're not going to do that.
Yeah. No.
But you can go for journal prompts. You can go for like I don't know, I'm having this argument with my boyfriend and I don't know what to say to him. Give me some options. Use that for solutions. But in terms of like doing the deeper work, AI is not that advanced to do that.
Yeah.
And hopefully will not be, because I'll be out of a job, and then also it just won't be great therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think though, just health in general is becoming wellness, the entire industry, a lot more tech focused. And one of the things that I always argue, especially when it comes to women's health specifically, you know, we're very complex. And for us, even like our mental well-being, our emotion is affected on so many different levels, from our hormones, our cycle, when you have children, when you're pregnant, when you enter perimenopause and menopause, it has a huge impact on our mental well-being. But I think one of the things with Agora Health that we see a lot with women that are in our community that struggle with their health, it stems from a real issue as well, where we've had no education around emotional intelligence. So yes, you may also have a physical condition and various issues, but also if you look at the root cause that may be contributing to that or accelerating that or really making it worse, there is that emotional aspect where often it is because whether it's unmanaged stress or suppressed emotions or, you know, fight or flight mode. And I think that although technology is great, if we keep turning towards just kind of answers and solutions and not that emotional, like you were saying, being able to actually identify what I'm feeling, why am I feeling this way, which if you're not in the room with a person and have a conversation and feel somebody's energy and where they're looking and how they're moving, you're just not going to get that. And I think if we're not careful, we will potentially achieve a lot in the wellness space, but that emotive wellness, which is fundamental for not just women, but generally for us to be healthy and well, we're going to totally miss a trick there.
Yeah.
And in the long term, I think it's going to be detrimental to us. So I think, I'm all for saying, like you said, use technology, have it in the sidelines, but nothing beats like a conversation, seeing you face to face, how you're speaking to me, how I can relate to you. That's what's really important and necessary.
And another thing actually I'd add with that is that one thing that people overlook about therapy is that it's about the relationship between the client and the therapist. It's not just about, I'm going to share my whole life and we're going to go through stuff. You're actually creating an attachment with somebody.
Yeah.
And sometimes that person might feel like the parent you always needed or the friendship you always needed. They're there holding your emotions like nobody else has. And that is really healing on the brain. You know, our neurons, like the way that they wire, like the way that we attach to our parents impacts how our body is wired. So if we had parents who were never around or who never picked us up when we cried, we learn that people are never there for us. You know, I feel abandoned. Whereas when you have that therapist that for the first time, this person's always there for me, and yes, it's in a 1 hour slot once a week, but they're always there for me emotionally and they're present. It starts to change the brain chemistry so that you then start to build trust in other relationships, not just this relationship.
Yeah.
AI can't do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Neural pathways, they're very important.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how important would you say therapy is for not just all people and women, but especially like women postpartum? Because I think they're often overlooked, especially once you've had the baby. It's kind of like the last thing you've actually got time for is go and sit down and have some one-to-one time with like the stranger, so to speak.
I think women in general, because I think like the amount of times that I've sat in front of a GP and they've made me feel like I'm crazy,
or just
and
giving
it
you
was
tablets or
completely
something.
like, yes, or like you're depressed, you should be on antidepressants. And like, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. But I think as women, often a go-to is you're having a bit of a breakdown. And it's never actually looking at all the other causes that could be affecting that. But then similarly, with things like postpartum, I think there's still, I would say, a lot of avoidance around postpartum depression. And I have a few friends who have experienced it, but never acknowledged it, and nobody around them ever acknowledged it, and they never seeked help. But we could all tell something was wrong. So yeah, I guess how do we as women navigate that, really?
What are the telltale signs that they should go and see a therapist?
I think if you feel isolated and alone in your experience and that there's no one else that you feel support from. I think if you feel like you're having there's a with postpartum, especially, or even if there's postpartum depression or not, that's a big transition. You're going from being a woman without children to a woman that's now a mother. That's a whole different role, which is going to have lots of different expectations. Also childbirth, like there's so many things that need to be spoken about and aired that typically in society we don't really speak about these things. We don't speak about the emotional impact of birth or the emotional impact of pregnancy and now having a child. So I think there's something about having a therapist that can hold you during that transition can help to maybe reduce the like impact of that difference. But yeah, I think as women, we are validated in so many different places, whether it's with doctors or in the workplace or just in the media. And so having a space where someone can understand all of your truths, all of the versions of you, and hold that all in one space can be really, really important.
Yeah. Well, I'm sold.
I'm going to be I've been sold.
We're going to be your new clients now. We're going to come and have
She doesn't want us. She's got a small handful of clients.
Can we not be part of the handful? We're just two. She's like, don't want to speak to you again after this. Oh, well, Tasha, it's been so lovely chatting to you. And at the end of every episode, we ask our guests which I think is very apt because you talk a lot about healing in your book, how healing isn't linear. And I think it really resonates with the name of this series, which is The Healing Equation, and our focus on really trying to make women feel more at ease with constantly discovering themselves and finding what healing is for them. But what is the healing equation for Tasha?
Oh, okay. I think it's mine. Is it actual equation?
It can
or
be
just
whatever
anything?
you want it to be. What works for you for your healing?
Yeah, I think it's mind plus body. So mind is unpacking, rewriting, confronting the things that maybe you're carrying that no longer serve you. But with that, just therapy alone is great, but there's still going to be an element of healing that's missing, and that is with the body. So it's the somatic work, it's the doing things that you love to do in your body, doing the things that make you feel alive and joyful. It's the how do you connect the two together so that you're not just healing through your mind and your past, but you're also healing through your body as well and your nervous system.
I love that.
Me too. Mind, body, babes.
Mind, body, soul.
Stop it. It was an absolute pleasure, Tasha. You. Honestly, I've been looking forward to this one for a while now. So very, very grateful to have had a lovely conversation with you today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no. So that will be all. Thank you so much for joining us.
See you in clinic.
You're seeing Grace and I next week. Enjoy the rest of your day. And to those of you that are watching, thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.
If you liked today's episode, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Until next time.